On the show this week, we have Dr. Wilfred Alber, Managing Partner, Roland Berger Strategy Consultants, India.
We need to leverage our market to be able to extract value from foreign investors and also create an environment in which local companies can prosper.
In news, Bernard Langer wins Senior Players Championship and Fabrizio Zanotti wins BMW International Open. Welcome to the show, Dr. Alber.
Hi. Nice.
Indeed amazing to have you here.
Nice to be here.
So let's talk about India now. Over the past 20 years since you've been in India, a lot has changed dramatically and for the better. And I'm quoting you from one of the articles that you've written once very passionately about India. So what is it about India that really excites you as a professional?
As a professional and just as a normal citizen, I think the exciting part of India is the kind of journey that we've traversed. We've been able to overcome significant challenges over the last 20 years.
Right.
The development has been tremendous.
Right.
And the promise going forward is even better.
Right.
So I think that is what makes this place such an exciting place to be.
Would you say India is on the verge of going through its third independence? And when I say third independence, I mean once actually in the year 1947, once the economic independence, so as to speak, in the year 1991 when we saw the new industrial policy setting in, and now with the BJP coming into power, 2014 would be its third freedom struggle, is it?
I think what has been very, very clear in the last election is that Indian citizens aren't satisfied with the status quo, aren't satisfied with a regime that does not tend to their needs.
Right.
And I think the success that we've seen of the BJP clearly indicates that there's significant hope now with the new government, that we have decisive decisions, that we have clear strategies, clear policies going forward. And again, that makes India an exciting place to be.
Right.
I think this is a message that needs to be communicated not only with India but also outside of India, because we will need foreign direct investment and engagement with the market to create jobs.
All right, on that note, I'll tee off and we continue our conversation. So as we walk over to the fairway, let's discuss the reasons why a lot of foreign investors have cancelled a significant amount of investments proposals into India. Why are we seeing that?
I think there's been a certain disappointment in the last 4 or 5 years. If we look at the number of stalled projects in India,
right,
that was the only thing that grew at double-digit rates. If we sort of look at the last 5 years, stalled projects grew by 42% on average per year. That creates questions in the mind of foreign investors.
Right.
Some of the retrospective action that was taken, again, created questions. And overall, due to the fact that we haven't been able to actively manage the economy and achieve only 4.5–5% of growth rates, the market itself has been a little bit subdued.
Right.
So while I don't think that foreign investors have given up on India, they definitely were looking forward to a changed situation on the ground, more clarity going forward, and that's what all of us hope will happen.
You know, I've been reading a lot about what you've been writing recently, and one of the things that you strongly feel about is a sense that I get is you strongly believe that the automobile and the aerospace industry, India needs to have their own companies manufacturing as far as automobile and aerospace is concerned. Is that because this is helping the country create better job creation and research and development opportunities? What is your take on that?
No, I think that India is a huge market. De facto, there are only 2 markets on this planet that are as large as India. That needs to be leveraged to ensure that we have not only good cooperation with foreign companies, but also create local champions.
Right.
The reason is simply that headquarters do have a significant impact on job creation. If you look at, for example, the German giants, disproportionate amounts of jobs are in Germany.
Right.
They don't sell all the cars that they produce in Germany, but they produce them in Germany. Most of the research and development is located in their home market, and that's something that's not limited for Germans. It's the same in the US, Korea, Japan, wherever you go. And that's why I feel that we need to leverage our market to be able to extract value from foreign investors and also create an environment in which local companies can prosper.
And today, do you think the country fails to leverage our own potential somewhere?
I feel that we have some clear global giants, companies that have made their presence felt globally, have been very successful. My question is always, what would have happened if we had perfect infrastructure, if we had simple taxation, and if we had simple labor laws? These companies would have been even more successful. Why should we deny companies and India these opportunities?
So you did say that simplification of tax structure is necessary. Simplification of regulatory environment across sectors is also necessary. That's something that you strongly believe in. Now with the BJP coming into power, the newly elected government, do you think with Narendra Modi's agenda on infrastructure, or whether it is simplification of regulatory processes for corporate India as well, you will see some sign of relief on that front? What's your estimate like?
I am very, very positive. As far as the new government is concerned, I think the first movements that we've seen are clearly pointing in the right direction. I think that there's a strong focus on 2 things. One is job and wealth creation. The second is also pride, I mean, every Indian, every country wants to be proud of their achievement. And I think that a changed economic environment, investment in R&D, encouragement of FDI, but with certain sort of riders that allow us to also profit from technology transfers, that should be something that the government is driving, and that should be something that we will see as very positive some 2-3 years down the line.
Thank you for staying with us on Tea Time, and welcome back. We're still in conversation with the Managing Director of Roland Berger, Dr. Wilfried Alber. And Dr. Wilfried Alber also wears many hats. He is an automobile specialist as well, given the fact that he was the ex-Managing Director of Mercedes India as well. So let's get your overview a little bit on the automobile sector now. Over the past 125 years, we've seen the sector going strong. Do you think it's much cooler, quote unquote, than the IT sector?
Yeah, I mean, I'm biased, obviously. So I think that it's quite an exciting story if you look at the automotive history over the last 125 years. Going forward, the industry will continue to grow and grow strongly, mostly driven by emerging markets. So we will see a lot of volume addition in India. We'll see a lot of volume addition in China. It'll be interesting to see how some of the states in Africa develop. And clearly, we're quite hopeful on the next 11 or Vista countries in terms of their participation in global growth.
Many indicators have recently pointed about a recovery of the automobile sector, so as to speak, in Europe. Do you think it's a safe and a good investment option for Indian players as far as that geography is concerned?
We've seen quite a bit of interest of Indian players in Europe in terms of M&A. That definitely is something that people should consider for 2 reasons. One is gives you access to potential technology and definitely gives you access to markets. Some of these transition or takeovers were highly publicized. We have Mothers and Sumi, for example, with a major takeover of Pegoform in Germany. There's been Amtech Auto with a couple of takeovers. So that's been positive, has been creating also the right news in Europe. But there are also smaller players that are interested in the market for very much the same reasons. And now is a good time. We do expect to see more investment in Europe going forward. We do see modification of the policy stance of the European Union and in particular of Germany, and that will lead to higher growth rates in Europe as well.
Dr. Alba, after the all-time high that we saw in the year 2010, the profitability on the supplier side in the automobile sector is declining again. How long before we bring the profitability back to normalcy globally, really?
I think that will depend on the suppliers themselves. There is no answer where we can say, okay, listen, a supplier will make fair profits. The situation is such that only suppliers who are development partners of the OEMs, who can basically improve their strategic position with the OEMs, will be able to have fair returns. If you are a build-to-print partner, chances are you will sort of move down the value chain and always be under pressure.
Right. Let's finish our game and we continue talking. Come. I can hold that for you.
Thanks, Nicole.
Oh, that's fantastic. So in India too, there is a difference between the top and low end suppliers as well. Is it
Correct.
time for the low suppliers to face death soon, really, in your opinion?
I think it's time to look at business models. It's time
Right.
to look at operations and time to understand how they can add even more value in relatively complex global supply chains. The positive thing is that many of the international companies are also looking for alternatives to traditional suppliers in emerging markets. That is potentially something that can be leveraged.
Right.
But you need to be able to build up the capability, you need to be able to be seen as a development partner rather than just a build-to-print partner.
What is it about the automobile sector that excites you so much, given the fact that you've headed Mercedes India as well for a very long time before you obviously came on board and became the managing partner at Roland Berger as well?
I think business generally is fun. It is in particular fun when you have the opportunity to deal with a product that's extremely complex. If you look at a car, the kind of challenges that you have to make sure that this is correctly designed, meets all the specifications, safety standards, all the applications. I mean, driving around in 46-degree heat in Delhi has to be possible, minus 40 in Siberia and Russia has to be possible.
Right.
And also the kind of improvements that we've seen in technology in terms of lightweighting, in terms of alternative propulsion, in terms of human-machine interface, the integration of IT into cars. There's a whole new revolution that is coming as far as Industry 4.0 is concerned, where we're looking at totally different ways of producing simply by connecting production machinery, connecting the order incoming systems with the factory. And I think that all makes it extremely exciting. Plus, I mean, whether you look at it from a commercial vehicle perspective or off-highway perspective, where you're de facto serving the economy and driving the economy, or you look at it from a passenger car perspective, you have a lot of emotion in
Right.
this business, and I think that's fun.
You know, I'm glad you mentioned the fact that IT has made its way into the automobile sector as well, and the big boom that we're talking about, especially in Industry 4.0, would be the e-commerce initiatives in the automobile sector, whether it is B2B or B2C. Let's go over that a little bit. How excited, how optimistic are you about that space to grow in this country right now?
I think it's already extremely important. If you look
Right.
at people and their desire to buy a new vehicle, what they typically do today overwhelmingly is they go into the internet, they do their research,
Right.
and typically go into a showroom already knowing exactly what they want to do.
Right.
Right? So I think that is a very important component. If we look at online platforms for vehicle sales in India currently, maybe a little bit difficult, especially for used cars, because there's I mean, it's still a highly unregulated space in India.
Sure.
But if you look at other markets, especially in the sort of mid-range, low-range vehicle space, the internet is everywhere.
You know, spare part sales on the internet is something that is picking up in this country as well. Obviously, we've not come to a stage where we're actually buying the actual car online as well. How far are we? How many years more before we get to that stage?
I think the important part is really how do I bring certain transparency in these kind of transactions.
Right.
A lot of the manufacturers have done that via true value programs and similar programs. that will help the consumer to simply say, okay, listen, this is a certified vehicle.
Right.
It comes with a certain standard guarantee. It's a good buy.
Right.
And then the internet gives you very, very good price transparency.
Thank you for staying with us on Tea Time, and we're still in conversation with Dr. Wilfred Alber of Roland Berger, and we're still discussing the automobile sector. Now, we finished our game, a par 3 hole, under par, of course, because we've just played 2 shots. Let's walk over to the cart as we head back to the desk and discuss a little more in detail about Germany's reform agenda as well. Now, what we saw in Germany has definitely turned the sector around for the better as far as the automobile space is concerned. How many lessons and how much do you think do we need to learn from Germany in that regard as far as the Indian automobile sector is concerned?
I think what happened in Germany, if you look in the 1990s, Germany was the sick man of Europe.
Right.
Relatively high unemployment, very low growth.
Right.
And with the Agenda 2010, the government took a number of courageous decisions.
Right.
Cutting back salaries, reforming labor laws, making them more flexible, increasing or building the base
Right.
to increase productivity.
Right.
That has led to a situation where productivity went up by about 20% in Germany, vis-a-vis a minus 15-20% in France. Jobs were actually created and could be kept in Germany, vis-a-vis massive job loss in France,
Right.
just to do a inter-European comparison. And I think the message over here is that focus on job creation, focus on the creation of ecosystems, environments in which we can actually be as competitive as anybody else in the world is very important to ensure that we have a fair shot at getting our share of world trade.
Right.
If we look at the Chinese, what has happened over there is, as a function of time, actually over 30 years, they have captured a disproportionate amount of world trade, for example, in leather, but also in other areas,
Right.
vis-a-vis their population. This, at least in some proportion, should be possible in India as well, and is extremely important as we bring the country forward and de facto also reduce poverty.
Let's talk about the shift that we're seeing in vehicle manufacturing as well, in the technology as far as vehicles are concerned. Do you think fuel cell vehicles are the future in an attempt to emission of course, you know, we've been talking about protecting nature, we've been talking about the environment, pollutants coming out of vehicles as well. So, fuel cell vehicles, what is your take really on that?
I think we have a number of technologies to reduce emission. The first and foremost is really optimizing the conventional combustion engine,
Right.
whether it's a petrol or a diesel engine.
Right.
That's where we'll see the most bang for the buck in
Right.
terms of the most reduction of emission for a reasonable amount of money invested. Beyond that, there are electric vehicles, there are also fuel cells, but you always have to look at a well-to-wheel or actually well-to-recycling cycle for vehicles. Simply to make sure that in the production process, in the design process, there's not more CO2 that's being generated or more pollutants that are being generated. A good
Right.
example is if you look at photovoltaic cells from China, while they are significantly cheaper, their cost to the environment is twice as high as photovoltaic cells that are produced in Europe. So there's a very, very negative impact on the overall economic balance simply because of production methods, because of how these things are actually driven and what kind of energy we use for production as well. If the energy is not clean, then obviously your impact on the environment will really not be that positive.
Okay, so let's talk about you spending quite a lot of your life and growing up in Europe, and when you came back to India, what was the difference really in the work culture that you have noticed, Europe versus India per se?
Again, I think there's no Europe-India difference. You have companies in India that are extremely professional, very, very driven. Flexibility in India typically is higher simply because you are facing crises much more often than
Right.
in Europe, in the sense that things happen, you need to take care of them, turn them around and be flexible and adjust.
And moving from Europe and settling down in Pune in a small, I mean not really a small town but a tier 2 city, how did you adjust to the way of life in Pune on a very personal level?
No, it's fun. I mean, Pune is a very nice city. You have lots of greenery, you have lots of opportunities to, you know, enjoy life, go to parties, meet friends.
Right.
And while it is a tier 2 town, I agree,
Right.
it is definitely improving as far as the infrastructure is concerned.
Sure.
So we have our Phoenix Mall, we have Moshes, we have all these various things that are coming over from
Right.
Mumbai, and de facto
Right.
Pune is de facto is an extension of Mumbai actually.
What next for you at Roland Berger really? What are you planning next? What's the big game plan for the company?
Now we've been able to build credible presence in industry and our industrial practice, focusing on aerospace and defense, focusing on automotive, focusing on energy and chemicals.
Right.
And clearly as we continue, we would like to make sure that we build this industry-focused competence further and also increase our geographic footprint. We have 3 offices in India now, and we're planning to open up Chennai by the end of this year, early next year.
And in terms of recruitment, do you have any trouble recruiting good talent from this country in terms of the B School graduates that are coming out of India? What is your take really, or would you rather prefer hiring from the Ivy Leagues overseas or any big business schools in Europe? How do you go about your recruitment process?
We basically hire at the business schools here in India, and we do get applications also from outside, from Ivy League schools that we look at, obviously.
Right.
But our experience within Intellence has been, throughout my career in India has been very positive. I've always been able to work with very talented, motivated, and fun people. So that's a big part of the reason why I enjoy living here and working here.
All right, so it was lovely talking to you.
Nice talking to you.
And thank you so much for
Thanks
taking
for having
time
me.
out and coming on the show as well.
Thanks
Thank you
for
so
having
much
me,
once again.
Yeah, thank you.
With
Take
that,
care.
it's a wrap from me, Chaiti Narula, and Dr. Wilfred Albo as well. I will see you next week again. Until then, enjoy the flight of a good drive.